Okay, so here are some of the biggest mistakes we see when we do email audits. So we've got like 6 of them here, but we also do look at quite a few other things, especially around retention and sales cohorts, 60-day LTV, 90-day LTV to CAC ratio, all those other sort of retention metrics, which a lot of brands are not focusing on. But let's just look at the more simple things. So first is deliverability. I'd probably say 70 to 80% of brands that come to us are having a deliverability issue, pretty much because they just don't have the technical know-how in-house, or even the other agency that's working on them just doesn't know how to improve deliverability properly or diagnose it. So the issue there is like deliverability. 1, it's not a very sexy topic, and 2, is quite technically complex. So brands come to us and then we see that inbox placement is weak. So what does that mean? It means they're sending emails and the emails are not landing into the inbox. They're not landing into the promotions or updates, and they're actually going to spam or junk folder. And of course, when it's landing in spam or junk folder, nobody's seeing your emails. Nobody sees your emails. They're not opening and clicking them. And then also experiencing fake open rates just because they're not, isolating or taking into consideration the new Apple iOS update with the Apple privacy opens. So what's happening is that they're sending emails, and people have Apple devices and they have privacy, the Apple privacy open activated. And what's happening is they actually don't open the email. Klaviyo sends them the email, and then Klaviyo thinks that they have opened the email. So sometimes these brands are seeing high open rates, but when in reality, they're quite low open rates. We also see domain-specific deliverability issues. So they may be delivering really well to certain email domains or ISPs, but then Gmail open rates are actually 10%, where Yahoo and Hotmail and everything else is like 30%. Sometimes it's the other way around. They can have good Gmail open rates, but then the Microsoft domains are really bad. So Hotmail, Outlook, what else do they have? Live.com. It's a bunch of Microsoft domains, and they actually all have like 8% or 10% open rate, and they don't even know this is. The brand doesn't know this is happening because they haven't been looking into the specific email domains. So once again, that needs fixing. A lot of this is due to a few things. It can be due to email authentication issues like SPF, DKIM, DMARC. It can be due to being on blacklists. It can be due to not having a dedicated sending domain. And it can also be due to sending to incorrect segments. So just sending to everybody is just hurting overall deliverability, or they haven't found out that Hotmail's got a 10% open rate or Gmail has a 10% open rate, and now they have to change up their segments and create a tighter engagement timeframe segment for those specific email domains and improve the deliverability metrics just for those specific ones. So deliverability is always a big one, and it's so important because once again, you're sending emails and they're not hitting the inbox. Nobody's seeing your emails. And you really have to test with this, and we use a number of tools because, even sometimes the owners of brands will be like, well, I'm getting the emails. And it's like, yeah, you are, but there's a large amount of people who are not. They're actually not seeing your emails. Then there's list growth. Very, very weak list growth happening on a lot of brands, or they have like double opt-in activated on certain pop-ups or in certain areas. Sometimes it's just the design and readability of the pop-up form. They've got too much text going on. It's not easily digestible and consumable. The only thing that the customer cares about is what's in it for me. What am I getting? You got to make that offer really clear, and then just have one input field. So sometimes I see people with like first name, last name, email, phone number, when's your birth date? And it's like, that's way too many friction points. Let's just go with email and start there. So that's a big one. And they're also just not doing like ruthless split testing on list growth, which is going to be one of the biggest factors to how well email and retention does. Because one, it has a lot to do with the offer, not just the sign up rate. The offer is going to predict your profit on the first purchase, so your margins, and then it's also going to predict the sign up rate, so how many people are actually submitting their email address. And then also on the back end, it's going to determine, what's the customer lifetime value of people when we show them this offer. One offer may seem better for sign up rate and conversions on the front end, but then over the next 90 days, they're actually really shit customers and they're not coming back and buying again. The revenue cohorts look terrible. So you have to be testing for that. Sometimes it's technical and behavior stuff to do with the pop-up form. So you can also split test that, full screen versus not full screen, all that sort of stuff, having a bubble, not having a bubble. And the other thing is also doing other things like having a 2 or 3 step pop-up where the first thing's just saying, do you want this offer? Yes or no. That micro commitment typically increases sign up rate because they make that micro commitment. And then you also want to start testing, collecting zero party data to find the goals, preferences, the intentions of your customer, so that you can segment for them and you can put them through a personalized welcome flow, show them personalized landing pages, and get far more conversions out of all these people that are signing up. Then we go to email design. Typically, email design looks pretty good for a lot of brands that come to us. Some of them don't have a proper designer, so they can look a bit shocking. Normally, the issue with them is bad CRO optimization. So, maybe having too many places they can click that are distracting in the header and things like that. And then CTAs not being above the fold. We've split tested this many times, and just having that CTA above the fold can make drastic high impact results. One brand we tested below the fold, above the fold CTA, nothing else changed. They made $8,000 more per in 30 days for that one email in a flow. It was $12 more per recipient, and their click rate went up from 6% to like 10.5%. And that was only an extra $8,000 in 30 days. So over a year, that's like 90K easy that they're missing out on. The other big thing is the email design not being mobile optimized. So it looks great on desktop, but then you look at it on mobile and all of a sudden the text is super small. You can hardly read stuff. Readability is low, which is obviously a terrible experience for people because they're opening emails and then they don't want to read it because it's so hard to read. So mobile optimization is another one. Same, the CTAs go too small sometimes. Images look stupid because they look too small. Should always be designed mobile first. And then the other thing is when they're doing the designs, especially in the new Klaviyo builder, so much extra code in that. And what happens is they design these emails and then the email is clipping. And what that means is we've had brands come to us who have like this big long email, and then you send it out and then it hits Gmail and then it only shows you like 15-20% of the email, and then under it says message is clipped, right? And it's not showing you the rest of the email. And that's because the email size is far too big. And so once again, that's a big quality assurance issue that we see a lot of people having. Then we go to flows. What happens with flows is some of them do cover a good large section of the customer lifecycle. A lot of them are not. So then they don't have all of the flows in place. And even if they do, typically they're not optimized. Another big issue we see is that they're not splitting prospects and customers in certain flows. If it's the abandoned checkout, if it's the replenishment flow, maybe even a browser abandoned, so that you're not showing current customers all these discounts in flows when they are put into a flow. You're going to save margin. You're going to stop conditioning people to be discount buyers. The other thing for flows is just not focusing on that post-purchase experience. Sometimes brands just set up, all these flows, and then they don't think that after somebody's purchased, they're just like, whatever, they've purchased. We don't need to focus on them or bother them or anything. But that, of course, is the moment in time and the most key inflection point for somebody to then turn into a repeat buyer, for you to then educate them. They've literally given you money, so don't just forget about them, right? Build out that post-purchase flow. And then we see a lot of times there's no replenishment flow for consumable products, which of course is a key flow to have for things that run out. When we look at campaigns, always too product focus, too many sales and promos, not enough content pillars. And just also not thinking about other business goals, such as, do we want to push some bundles and get better margins, AOV out of this sale, instead of just doing a sale on like, here's a single product, get 10% off. All right. So instead we want to save some margins, give them bundles. Also, bundles are a great way to expose them to other products they may have never considered buying before. And then all of a sudden they get something that they would have never bought, and then they love it. And then they're like, cool, I'm coming back for that again. Can introduce them to sticky products. So products that, from looking at the data, actually have very, very high repeat buyer rate and have really good customer lifetime value. They're LTV drivers. So that's another great thing about doing the bundles. Campaigns to target prospects to become first-time buyers. Pushing people into the subscription or SMS program, overcoming objections, building trust, collecting user-generated content, putting out surveys to your email list to like de-risk product launches, help with product development, figure out why people don't become second-time buyers or why people leave. All those sort of different campaign and business objectives are just not being met. And then we come to segmentation, which is, always it's like a bomb went off. A lot of people we see, just sending to the whole list. And sometimes we see the segment and it just says everyone or all active, and they're just blasting everybody on the list. They don't care if this person has stopped opening emails in the last year or 6 months or whatever it is. Once again, very, very bad for deliverability. And also a lot of times they just don't have the correct segment definitions inside of their segments. So not, excluding for Apple privacy opens, things like that. And then the other thing is just no lifecycle segments. So they're just doing like 30, 60, 90, whatever, 120 day engaged, as long as they opened an email and clicked an email, but they haven't even segmented for, this is the segment of people who've never purchased from us. This is the segment of people who have purchased from us, so on and so forth. So we need those lifecycle segments, purchasers, non-purchasers, active buyers who've purchased more than 2, 3, 4 times. And then like lapsed customers also, or people who are churning, so that you can send different content to all these different segments, because they're totally different people and they should be treated differently. So those would be some of the biggest mistakes that we see when we're auditing accounts.